Scott, I'm delighted I finally pinned you down for Boxing Life Stories. It's taken a while. Now, we've known each other for quite a long time, but we probably started to get pally around the time we bumped into each other in Rome. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. Sitting 2 feet away, didn't even have a clue.
Yeah, it was funny. So what happened was, for those who don't know, is I was in Rome with my other half, you were in Rome with your other half.
Yeah.
And we were sat probably this distance apart, but side on, weren't we? And you had your flat hat on because it was freezing out there, wasn't it? Big thick coat, and I had a thick coat. And I was saying to my other half there, I said, "Is that Scott Welch?" And she's like, "I don't know who that is." So I got a picture on my phone. I said, "Is that him?" And she went, "Yeah, it's him." And then as we got up at the same time, we were like, "Hey!" And then we pulled the chairs together, didn't we?
Yeah.
Wouldn't be able to do that now.
No.
And then we sat and had dinner. It was nice. But and we sort of stayed in touch. But it's nice to come over to your gaff, and I was obviously done a lot of research building up to this. So you've gone from Great Yarmouth, which is where you're from, to Atlantic City, Vegas, and beyond. It's been a crazy journey.
Yeah, really. For me, from listening to a little Norfolk boy coming from there, where I come from, a rough little town. It's I've done more than I could ever have dreamt of, So it's good.
But Brighton's now home. And this is where you're going to spend the rest of your days. This is it now, is it?
Absolutely. I think. Brighton for me was. I was in a bad place in Norfolk. I was in trouble. I was on the verge of going to prison. So. It wasn't the best place for me. If I'd have stayed there, I would have definitely ended up in the wrong place, and I probably wouldn't be here now. A few of my pals are all gone, so it's lucky I got out, I think.
Did the boxing start in Great Yarmouth, or was it when you came here to Brighton?
No, I walked into the Kingfisher boxing gym in Great Yarmouth. I was there for about 3-4 weeks, and then they slung me out for knocking somebody out and in a spar. So, but I did go. I wanted to impress them, so I ran across the ring, smashed into them. As I dropped them, I carried on hitting them while they were down, and I didn't really understand. I thought they were going to be impressed with it, and the guy said to me, "Listen, get your bags and get the fuck out of the gym." That was that. So
how old were you then?
Yeah.
Feel free.
I mean, that was that.
How old were you when you were?
I'd say I was 13.
Were you?
So yeah.
And what took you to the boxing gym in the first place?
Long story. I mean, I was. It's just the boxing was in me. It's in my family. My real father was a boxer and a boxing trainer, a professional boxing trainer. Similar time when I was boxing, I used to look after a guy called Marty Duke in Norfolk, but I never met him till I was kind of 24, and the man that I considered my dad was my sisters and brother's dad, and a wonderful man that I've basically called my dad all my life, and it was. But my blood father was a boxer, and I believe that it's in me, it's in the blood.
So it sounds like you talk about different things there, where you've obviously attacked someone at Kingfisher. Yeah. You've obviously got.
Well, he was the founder of Kingfisher. My father was, so my real father. So he was one of the founders anyway, and then obviously he was still attached to it, but he wasn't there. So I thought, but of course no one knew the story. So I didn't tell anyone the story. So I was just trying to get people to talk about me, and unfortunately I got slung out and told I'd never boxed for that club, and the guy called Cecil Page, he's still around now, he's 86 or something. He was a guy, he then many years later got me to be guest of honour at a show, and I said to him, "Cecil, you do know who I am?" And he was like, "Of course I do, He said, "Scott, if only I'd have known like what we could have achieved." So yeah, no, it's a good story.
So when you came to Brighton, you kind of knew what to do with boxing then. By then,
I always believed that I could fight, not so much box, but I believe that I enjoyed. I didn't know, but I enjoyed I enjoyed kind of proving myself. When people told me I couldn't do this or I couldn't do that, then it come quite comfortable to me to kind of try and prove them wrong, you know. So and it's a trait that's stuck with me all my life, and I'm still doing it now. So it's a great trait, you know.
It is. I mean, what was your amateur career like? Obviously, you won the ABAs back in the day, and that was in many ways the pinnacle. Did you want to go to Commonwealth? Did you think about Olympics?
I mean, at the time, it was '92. I come from nowhere. Literally, I think I boxed Terry Dunstan twice in the build-up for that last year.
You first fought Terry Dunstan, just to make you feel a bit older, 30 years ago, a couple of weeks ago. 30 years ago, you fought Terry for the first time.
Incredible. He was a great man and become a very dear friend of mine. And I got great memories with Terry. We again, I think we sparred together at the Henry Cooper many years before we fought each other, or a couple of years before we fought each other. And I think he told me a little porky about his record, that his record was better than what it was. And then I was matched with him at a show. I turned up Effingham, where was it? The first one at the brewery in London. And I was like, holy shit, I'm boxing him and he's got this record. And anyway, I went and checked his record with the trainer. He said, no, he ain't got that record. This is his record. And I think he'd lost 2 or 3 times. I was like, the lion little toad. So I thought, right, that's it. I can deal with him. I think I beat him the first time, and then he beat me in the second time. But the second time, I kind of went out to get rid of him. You know, I didn't go out to box. I boxed him at Effingham Park the second time, about a year later, and I think he headbutted me in a blatant headbutt in the first fight. He could really fight, Terry, really fight, and he was he was an incredible pro as well, wasn't he? He beat Dennis Andrews and had the world title won in the 12th round or 11th round when he dropped his hands and went for the thing and got caught. But a very dear man and a very dear friend.
And you fought Richard Fenton in the final of the ABA.
Richie Fenton, again we become friends afterwards. Richie again was I think he was a Metropolitan policeman at the time, and I didn't get on too well with the police, so that made it quite easy to fight him. I think he was southpaw, and he actually got the better of me for 2 rounds. I couldn't pin him down, and then literally I just carried on walking through his punches until I landed one, and then I think he'd done a back roll, and then got up, and then the next shot was a finisher, knocked him out cold. He was out badly. That was, again, I thought I was going to win that quite comfortable, and then I can remember it. So I was 2 rounds down, going into the last round. I was in the Albert Hall, packed, absolutely mobbed out. And I looked across, and for some reason I focused in, and I could see my wife in the crowd, and she was looking at me really worried. And I said to myself, "Wow, I'm losing this. I need to pull something out quickly, drastically," and got the knockout. So yeah.
Was that the idea, to win the ABAs and then turn pro?
Honestly, I mean, I never the dreams. I didn't really have any dreams. I just wanted to do well. I wanted to box. I was boxing. I'd say I was boxing to let my father know that I could do this, you know. And I wanted to prove to him, because he never saw me, never got in contact with me or anything until I won the ABAs. And then after I won the ABAs, then he got in contact with me. So. It's a tough one for me, you know. I mean, we go through life and we understand, but you need a father up to the age of kind of 16, 18 years old. After that, I think you're on your own, you do your own thing. I left home at 16. I was on the street, so to speak, and getting by however we did. So, when he comes into contact with me, I was intrigued to meet him. I wanted to see what he looked like, and I did finally meet him, and I thought I'd feel something, but it was too long, too far gone. You know, I'd moved on, but I still wanted to prove myself in the boxing for him. You know.
Did you go from being a scally in Great Yarmouth to a hard-working boxer in Brighton, or were you still a scally at the start in Brighton?
I'll always be a scally. So, so coming to Brighton, again, you kind of like reinvent yourself. You can be who you want to be, you know. I come to Brighton, I was fighting in Great Yarmouth. I was straight away, got to know a few people in Brighton. You know, they'd ask me to sort out this, sort out that. So I was always fighting, and I did it kind of for free. So I was a bit of an idiot as well, but
you got a reputation. At the same
I got
time.
a reputation, and was in the gym. I walked in that gym at 16 years old in Hove. I've now ran it for the last 20 years. So it's very dear to me. I mean, it's been there since '46, and I've ran it. Well, I've been in there since 84, 85. The first time I walked in, I was 1.
Amateur record, I've read 30 wins, 8 losses. But
you missed that. I said I was 1. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you were more like 31.
Yeah.
Okay, so amateur record, 30 wins, 8 losses, but you avenged 5 of those 8 losses. That sound about right?
Yeah, wow. You even done your homework on that. Shocked, yeah.
I've done a little bit.
I would have reversed all 8 of them was the story. I would have reversed all 8 of them, but I never got the chance. So.
Who was the best you fought in the amateurs?
The best I fought in the amateurs, it was probably skill-wise, probably Dunstan. You know, again, yeah.
You turned over with Matchroom. Why did you choose to go with Barry Hun?
At the time, I think Frank Warren had just been shot, so he was at the game. I don't think Maloney. There was a few. I was going to go with a guy, the EastEnders guy. I can't think of his name.
Go on. No, you got me. From EastEnders.
A good friend of mine. Yeah, he used to be a bit part in EastEnders. Lives in London. He's always had a lot of fighters around him, and he.
Not Harry Holland.
Harry Holland. Yeah. So Harry come and got me. He took me around sparring, and he was quite impressed with me. He took me to quite a few places, and I was ready to turn pro with him. And then somebody said, "Look, you know, Matchroom are interested. Go up there and see him." And then I think I'll be honest with you. I think it was Davis. I think it was Ronnie who said, "You know, go check Matchroom. They want to see you." So I then went up there. It was Barry Hun, and he offered me a good deal. Said every fight will be on TV, and and then I went pro with them.
Did you start training with Jimmy Mack straight away?
No. I trained under Ronnie for the first. I trained under Ronnie for the first 3 fights, I think, or
okay.
3 fights, and then on my 3rd fight, I got a horrendous cut headbutt. I was 2-0 going into the 3rd fight.
Gary Charlton.
Got a headbutt and 14 big gash over my eye. Come back to the corner. Ronnie said, "It's a bad cut, son. You need to knock him out." So I ran out, walked straight into another headbutt, and then it split the eye up. It was like a snake's tongue, and then they called it off. My face was masked in blood. They called it off, and then
Boxing News said at the time you were unlucky. It was Mickey Van, the ref, who stopped it on the night.
Yeah.
But just flashback. So going back to your debut, when you turned over, what was the dream? To be a British champion, to be a world champion?
I think
like what was the goal?
Honestly, at the time, I mean, me and another one of my training partners from the Hove days, me and him used to talk about, imagine training with the likes of Nigel Benn and Frank Bruno and this, and it was just way above us, you know. And then I think the first day I turned up at Matchroom, he gave me Freddie King gave me a pair of Nigel Benn's boxing boots that he'd fought Sugar Boy Malinga in, and I took these boots. They still had the blood on the toes, and it was only a few months before. And I took them back and gave them to my pal John and said, "Listen, you can have these. These are Nigel Benn." He was blown away. So I think it was just great to go really. The dream, I always wanted to be a British champion, but I don't think I had any dreams of like achieving much because I never believed that I could, So it was quite a funny one, really.
Yeah, it sounds like you had like an inner rage that boxing definitely gave you a channel for.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And this explains partly, obviously, and we'll get onto this later, but your insane fitness.
Yeah.
But we'll go on to that later on. You boxed on some early Herbie Hide bills.
Yeah.
Were you and Herbie close? You told me Herbie's stories before. I know they're in there.
Me and Herbie go. Listen, I'll always have love for Herbie. Great. For him, me and him, we had a love-hate relationship. But he's very dear to my heart. I think the first time I sparred him, the first time I saw him, I walked up. I think the first day of training, I turned up with the matchroom officers in Romford, and he come out and he thought I was Henry Wharton, which I got quite a bit at the time. And I think after speaking to Henry, he signed a few of my autographs later on as well. So he thought I was Henry. He was like, "Oh, Henry." I said, "No, I'm not Henry. I'm Scott.
I'm bigger.
I'm a heavyweight, And I think Herbie. I think I just won the ABAs at heavyweight, which was around 14 stone, and I think Herbie weighed literally 12 and a half, 13 stone, and was fighting at a heavy. So I think he used to put He used to put weights around his leg to weigh in on to make the heavyweight. I think it was 14 stone, wasn't it? Then you had to weigh to be a heavyweight in the pros. So, yeah.
So when you were coming up with Herbie, did you guys help each other?
I'd say he helped me massively. Without even knowing it, because he was way more experienced than me. I watched him, I studied him. He even banned me from the gym. He banned me from the gym because I was learning too much. So. And each time we sparred, I was getting better and stronger. But the first day, I think him and Gary Delaney both give me an ass kicking. I think I got him with Herbie first, done a couple of rounds. He battered me. He wasn't a heavy puncher, but he was a non-stop. And he had an unbelievable jab. And Herbie was probably the best I've ever been in the ring with. As in. In the gym sparring, because he was an incredible guy and had incredible footwork, hand speed, and literally would blitz you and he would like 20 shots, 30 shots, and you'd be like getting knocked back, and you think, how can he do this? And it took me about a year, and we used to measure up in the mirror afterwards, stand there looking at each other, going, yeah, and then I clocked that he had a wrist and hand longer than my arm. So he had these extraordinary long arms and like Mr. Tickle arms. So he used to get me. And once I realised that, then I started to bob and weave and get under him, and then I had more success.
When you turned pro, by the way, you fought John Williams on your undercard because Steve Yoreth didn't weigh heavy enough. Do you remember that?
That's it. I remember, yeah, Steve Yoreth I was supposed to fight, and then it got switched to... John Williams, yeah.
Yeah, and you said, I'm not happy with my performance, but a 5th round stoppage is better than a points win.
Yeah.
Boxing News then said you plodded to a win over Gary Williams.
Gary Williams in Belgium, yeah, and on the undercard of Herbie, yeah.
And then came the Charlton fight. So when you lost that, even though it was on a cut, a loss seems a much bigger setback today and these days, but how bothered were you losing your unbeaten record?
Well, it was devastating. Absolutely devastating, and what made it worse is good old Ronnie said to me my career was over in the car on the way back. Said you'll never fight again. You're finished.
And because of the extent of the injury.
I'm like, yeah. It was
where was it?
Bad.
Where was it?
It's 14. It was a big gash.
Okay, so is that the one that I can still see there?
No, that's that one was later on. This one was in the eyebrow, but it was a big deep gash, and Ronnie kind of said, look, that's always going to give you problems, mate. You got to knock it on the head now. And I'm looked at him. I'm ABA champion. I'm 2-0. I've just been headbutted on winning the fight, and he's telling me my career's over. So from that day, I'm like, okay, right. So anyway, the next day I was in. I think we got home at 2:00 in the morning, and I was in the gym at 10:00 in the morning, smashing the bags to pieces because I was so annoyed that I'd been beat, and I think he come in with Chris Senior, and like, what are you doing here? I told you you're done, you're finished. You can't go on, Scott, because the eye's going to open up all the time. And I remember just kind of looking at him thinking, you're dreaming. There's no way this is over. This is just a start. And I walked out and then went to London to the Matchroom gym and won my next 9 fights by stoppage. So I think.
And that was with Jimmy Mack.
No. That was again. I went to London. I went to again. I think what I had, which I find not a lot of people have. You got the determination to succeed. I mean, for me, it didn't matter really kind of who I had around me. I was going to fight and I was going to win. So I had Freddie King for the first couple of fights. And I had a guy called Alex Gower. I think I had Freddie. I think I had Alex. I think I had kind of 2 or 3 guys that were in the Matchroom trainers. And they weren't really my trainers. They'd just kind of jump
house
in.
Trainers.
We used to go around and watch everyone fight. And I think I shared the house with Eamon Loughran, who became a world champion, Herbie, who's obviously world champion, and a few others, Alan Levine, and a few other guys who great times.
So you mentioned obviously that run of wins. Then came James Oyebola in Atlantic City.
Yeah.
How did that fight come about that you 2 British heavyweights were fighting in Atlantic City?
Again, I was so I think Herbie was supposed to fight the guy, the guy from New Zealand, Jimmy Thunder.
Okay.
And I knew Barry McGuigan quite well at the time because he used to do all the fights. And anyway, I told him one day that they'd got me Jimmy Thunder to fight. I didn't know who Jimmy Thunder was, and I said, "Can you find out about him?" We didn't have no
box
way.
rack and no internet.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah. So he went away. He said, "Look, I don't know him. I'll ring you back." Anyway, he rang me back. He said, "Scott, this guy's a tough guy. He's a gold medalist at the Commonwealth Games. He's the only 2 boys who have beat him are big, tall, 6'5" guys. He's a hell of a puncher, and I think you're gonna have your night's work cut out if you go for it." He said, "You're only." I think I had 10 fights at the time. He said, "You don't need it at this stage of your career, so don't do it." Anyway, I turned it down, and Barry was I didn't know, but I went in the office and they'd done all the posters, and it was all done, and they'd accepted. Yeah, they'd accepted that I was fighting. It was something like the 8th of January or the 11th of January, '93, and I'd only been a pro, kind of like I was still finding my feet, and then I told him that, look, I'm not taking it, and he was like, "Listen, son, you've got to take it. If you don't take it, then you're going to be cleaning windows for the rest of your career, I think." So I didn't take it, and then I was in the wilderness for a few months, and then literally I then went back, said, "Look, Barry, can you get me back on?" He got me back on, and then said, "Look, I didn't even know. I think I had a fight. I fought Steve Garber. I think I knocked Steve Garber out or stopped him. And then after that, as I got out, Barry said, 'Oh, you're fighting in Atlantic City on the undercard of Lennox.'" And it was like, wow, fantastic,
Yeah, there was an all-star cast there. So Lennox was fighting Phil Jackson. Also on the bill was Andrew Galotta,
Yeah,
Arturo Gatti,
yeah,
John David Jackson.
yeah, incredible card.
Pretty good company.
Yeah. Kevin McBride was on there as well.
That's right. He'd done about 5 fights by then.
Yeah, there was like the heavyweight side of it was incredible, and I was the smallest and lightest heavyweight on the card, and it worried me. I was like, holy Jesus, these guys are massive.
Yeah, but a lot of those guys were 6'8", 6'6",
yeah.
18
and I'm
stone.
like this little dude. We're gonna get smashed, But and James, I was fighting James, who was 6'9", So, but I'd been sparring in New York, and I'd been sparring. So I did all my training in Gleason's. I went out there on my own for 4.5 weeks. That's all I had before the fight. The day before I went out, on a Sunday, I sparred Funjo Banjo in London, and we'd done about 6 rounds, and I said to the corner, as I was going out, I said, right, I'm knocking him out this round. And as I loaded a left hook, went to fire it, he's hit me with a right hand and caught me on the eye bone and gave me 7 stitches under my eye there. So literally the day before I was going out, and then so Barry said, look, it's okay, you still got 5 weeks, 4.5 weeks or so. That only takes 5 days and you'll have the stitches out. So I jumped on the aeroplane, still went out, sparred some great guys out there. Sparred Mitch Green.
Mitch Blood Green, bloody
Mitch
hell.
Blood Green again. What I used to kind of gauge myself on was not my boxing ability, but whether I could hurt him or not. And what used to give me the confidence to know that I was doing good was if I could hurt him. And that's how I used to box, really. It was never kind of like, oh, I'm going to box if I can box him. It was always about, I've got to knock him out. I've got to knock this guy out. Like the fights, I've got to knock him out in the fight.
So Mitch Blood Green was obviously a New York gangster in inverted commas. He'd obviously fought Tyson, one of the first guys to take him the distance.
Massive name.
How welcoming was he to you in the gym?
Oh, he was. He was what we call a crap talker. So he told me on numerous occasions that they were going to bash me up. And, I mean, it was a funny thing. The first time I ever went into Gleason's, I think it was 92 or 93, and 2 big black guys followed me to the guy gave me a ticket. Said, what's your name? He said, what's your name? I said, Scott Welch. He went, Scott Welch. He said, what's your middle name? Irish. And they nicknamed me Irish for the 2 weeks I was there. And they walked me to the gym and walked me to the lockers and said they were going to send me home to drink tea with the Queen. So it was quite an intimidating place, Gleason's, back in the day. Very intimidating. But yeah, I mean, I'd say there was, predominantly being a white guy at the time, there was a lot of racism in America as well. I'd say 98% of that gym was black, so it was tough walking up them stairs and going in. But me being an avid boxing fan, knew that Tyson had been in there. Riddick Bowe used to be in there all the time, and breathing that air, the same air as when I walked in, and was like,
yeah, people like Jake LaMotta have been in there,
mate,
and all that.
Everybody, it was incredible. So for me, it was like I say to you about your job, you've got the best job in the world. So going around and meeting these guys, for me, do you remember the old videos I used to do with all the old fights?
Yeah, the VHSs.
So that's what I used
stuff,
I used to watch all them. So for me, walking up the stairs and going into Gleason's was an incredible feeling.
I'm amazed that actually you were using VHSs. I thought it was more the reel-to-reel tapes.
They were the early days, yeah.
You mentioned Oyebola. He's 6'9". He's a heck of a lot taller than you. He also had so he's 6.5 inches taller than you. Obviously, a massive reach advantage as well. Things didn't go to plan in that fight.
No, I mean, again, the eye. So my sparring that I did I sparred a guy, again, anybody who knows their boxing will know a guy called Ray Annis in America, and he was a real serious dude, and I think he beat Lennox, and the story was he beat Lennox or Bowe in the amateurs and turned pro, got a load of money, and but he was he was in the gym. He used to spar me all the time, and I ended up sparring Jamil McCline, and some real good, tough guys. So it kind of like made me feel like when I come back to England, it was like a little bit feeling like I was better than the majority.
Well, obviously,
of
having
them,
hung with that calibre of people gives you a bit of confidence, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Even if you're in the same gym as them, it gives you something.
Yeah, and the history as well was big.
Back to Oyebola though, you dropped him in round 4 in that first fight in Atlantic City.
Yeah, I think.
And then from what I understand, reading the reports, it sounded like Dean Powell, who was in Oyebola's corner, read him the right act and got him back on track, and really sort of helped win that fight from the corner. Again,
what you don't know, by the sound of it, was he snapped my jaw in the first round.
I did know that. I was coming on to
right,
that.
okay.
Yeah. I didn't know it was the first round.
Okay, he snapped my jaw in the first round. I didn't know he was broke, but I knew it was badly damaged. And what I was trying to do was box him in the first round. And then after he hit me with the right hand, he had a sledgehammer right hand. He caught me in the right. I heard a crack and knew I'd got some damage. And as I got close to him, because I like to kind of be close, and as I got close, he kind of shoulder barged me, and the pain went through me. And I thought, shit, he's broke my jaw. I can't tell him. I couldn't tell the corner, because if I told the corner, it was up being televised, it would go back to the other corner, and they'd know I got a broken jaw. So I couldn't say anything. They yanked the gum shield out, kind of put it back in, and very, very painful. Again, didn't know it was broke until after you get it X-rayed, but I knew I had damage, and that was so. No, I was trying to fight him. Then he done my jaw. Then I turned and boxed, and when I boxed him, it was easy for me. So, I said it was easy. He knocks me out in the 5th round, so it wasn't that easy. But I then won the next 3 rounds, dropped him at the end of or won the next 2 rounds, dropped him at the end of the 3rd, badly. And again, I had my English trainer, Alex, flew out from England the day before. So I trained with an American called Francis Romano that was a great trainer, that I considered a great trainer. And they told him that he couldn't be in the corner, so Alex had to do the corner, and he didn't want the American in the corner. I don't think it come from him. I think it come from Matchroom. Freddie King said, look, he's our boy. We don't want the American in the corner. And when I dropped him in the 3rd round, my instinct and everything about me would have said, jump on him and get him out. And he told me not to go for the kill. He said, just, Scott, he's falling apart. You're beating him easy. Just keep behind the jab and work the jab. And that's not me at all, That wasn't what we worked on in training. It wasn't
wanted to turn the screws.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that I would have knocked him out that round straight away. He froze. He was kind of freezing, and then of course that by not getting him out of there allowed him to get one more round, and then I think he recovered in the 4th, and then he had a bigger round in the 5th. So it was my first fight in a 12-round fight, and I was listening to the corner because they're telling me that you've got to do 12 rounds. And so that was it. And then the 5th round come, I think, watching the videos afterwards and everything, you could see Dean, like you say, Dean Powell was firing him up. My guy was calming me down, and then it was like, go out. I saw the shot coming. He threw a beautiful right hand. Saw the shot. I used to carry my hands low. Lifted my left hand up, and it snaked around there, and literally that was all she wrote. No, it landed on the jaw, and then I think watching the video, I then closed my eyes, and he dropped another one on my temple and knocked me out. So I was up at kind of 6, but I was in the Tweety birds were going around my head, and
That was your first legit loss. Obviously, you'd had the cut loss to Gary Charlton. How much harder was this one to take?
Again, this was a different ball game completely. So you're on the biggest. I'm on the undercard of Lennox Lewis, the biggest show in literally in the world, like a Tyson Fury or an AJ show.
Yeah. You want to use it as a platform to make a statement.
Absolutely. I mean, I think I'd signed to fight George Foreman. I was fighting George Foreman in the next fight. I think it was 100 grand, and I was getting, 100 grand was like £1 million then, wasn't it? Or more than £1 million. So I think that fight was done. Evander Holyfield was ringside. I had my family. I've got family in upstate New York, and they'd all come down to see me. So absolutely devastating. If there had been a rock, I would have climbed under it and never come out again. So.
They sent Americans over to spar with Herbie, didn't they?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
And you managed to take advantage of that by being Herbie's stablemate.
Yeah.
Well, I say you took advantage of it. I mean, you ended up sparring a lot of good Americans. So tell me about some of the Americans that came over to work with Herbie.
Well, the ones that used to come over, they were like, one of them was Linwood Jones, who was Tyson, chief sparring partner. You had Kim Malodum. You had some of these guys, Frankie Swindell and
Alex Stewart.
Alex Stewart. Yeah, I mean Alex Stewart was a dear friend. I first met Alex in Florida. he had a detached retina, was getting over a detached retina, and then we become friends, and he used to come over to from America to stay at my house and train with us. He very dear man. Yeah, loved him. So great guy. We used to have wars. I bought him in. I think I give him 8 stitches over his eye before he was going to fight Gonzalez, and then he returned it and broke my ribs. Broke one of my ribs before I before I was fighting Axel Schultz for the European.
And then it was quite a vicious little rivalry that you and Herbie had, in the sense that you would try and do a better job on the sparring partners than him.
Yeah. So Herbie used to put me in first to try him out, and then if I got the better of him, then he'd start whinging and saying they're not good enough for him and all that. But one of them was an Evander. He'd just come from camp with Evander, and they'd brought him in for Herbie, and Herbie was like, go on, go spar him. Come on, let's go spar him. And I sparred him, and big guy, and I flattened him on his back. And Herbie ran into the office and said, "Get rid of him. He's useless. Scott Welch has just knocked him out. And but he stayed, and he ended up sparring him, and he couldn't knock him. He tried every day to knock him out and couldn't knock him out.
You obviously mentioned there that there were some sort of cracks between you and Matchroom, with you and Barry at the time. You left Matchroom to join Frank Warren.
Yeah, I think after getting beat on the undercard of Lennox, back in them days, that was 2 losses on my record. So, they've got all these other guys coming through, and I think it was time. They were like, okay, he's been beat twice. We'll use him, and I was preparing for the return I wanted the return with Oyebola. I mean, that was all that was in my head. I think the next fight, I was supposed to fight a big named American, and I think Herbie went the distance with him, and then I said, right, I'll fight him, and they were like, yeah. Well, we don't really want you to fight him. We want you to fight Steve Garber again, the one you fought before Oyebola, because you're going to have Oyebola again. I said, but I've already knocked him out. That's not.
He became.
I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not going. Yeah. I'm not going to get anything from that. I'm going to.
You're not going to get further up the
ladder.
Yeah,
I need work. I need to go rounds, and this is what I need now. And again, I didn't have anyone advising me or anything. It was all in my own head. And I knew that if I go that route, that's not the right route, and I don't want to make the numbers up for Oyebola. I've got to beat him in the return, no matter what. And then that was it. I think Cornelius Carr was with me at the time. We were great pals and used to train together. And I think Corny was with Frank Warren, and then he said to me, like, he'll have a chat with you. And I think I went, and he offered me double money what I was getting at Matchroom for the normal fights, and said he'd get me a return with Oyebola. I think he allowed me 2 fights, and then the third would be against Oyebola, which was perfect.
Yeah, as it worked out, so you fought Roger McKenzie, then you beat Michael Murray, the first of 2 fights with Michael, then you beat Eduardo Antonio Carranza, and then you fought Julius.
Yeah, no. So I come back from America. My first fight back was still under Matchroom, which was McKenzie.
Yeah.
I don't think McKenzie had ever been stopped, so my plan was to try and stop him. I think I stopped him in 60 seconds, and then the next fight was Murray, still under Matchroom, and again, this is where I thought I was improving, and he took me the distance. Again, Michael Murray, very, very dear friend.
Underrated fighter as well.
Underrated fighter, and just a real tough guy. And Michael took me the distance. I dropped him, but we went the distance, and it was that made me understand I need more work. I can't go back into the Oyebola fight after that performance.
Right.
So I needed more work, and that was when the split come. Then it was Eduardo Carranza on the undercard of Bruno in Edinburgh.
That's right. And then, so you boxed on some good bills. Nothing wrong with the memory. You boxed on some big bills. Obviously, then came Julius Francis, who would end up being a Tyson opponent years down the line. You dropped him 3 times, stopped him in 12 for the Southern Area title. It was also a final eliminator for the British.
Yeah, I mean Julius again. Julius, go back to the really early days. I mean, the Kilroy Silk. There was after Michael Watson got
should boxing be banned?
Brain damaged in 1990, wasn't it? 1990. When did
it was around
Michael?
Then, wasn't it?
I think it was 1990, and then we were still. I was amateur. I think I met Julius. Julius was a kickboxer, good-looking, cool-looking dude. Come in, and sat next to. Ended up sitting next to him. And then we got talking, and he said, "Yeah, I do a bit of amateur boxing as well, but I'm a kickboxing champ." And anyway, and then we ended up going to Matchroom on the same day, sparring, and then we just become great friends all the way through. Really, we're still great pals now.
So were you friends when you were friends when you fought him the first time? Then
friends when I fought him. Yeah, I mean,
is that hard fighting someone that you're friends with?
Listen, it's how I look at it is this: we've got to get past that person to move on to the next one, and whoever it is, we've got to deal with it. And it's just something that listen. We smash each other every day in the gym in sparring. It's no different in the ring, getting in the ring, and just you've got to try. And I think the second time I fought Michael Murray, I said, all summer I'd had him as a sparring partner. Unbeknown to me that I was supposed to, again, another, the second time I fought Murray, I was supposed to fight another, was it an American or?
It was after a long layoff, wasn't it?
After a long layoff, I think I was fighting an American and then a big name, and then they said to me, "Oh, Michael Murray's took the fight at a week's notice." I'm like, "Michael, what are you doing? Holy shit, this is my friend." Right, okay, I've got to get rid of him quick. And I envisioned taking nothing away from Michael. He was a very, very tough man. But when I went to work in the gym, if I said to myself that day, right, I'm going to hurt him today, then I'd hurt him. So it was like it wasn't. These days were different days, weren't it? It was a different world back then. So
and you approach it with a different mindset when you're that kid.
Yeah,
and when you're
absolutely.
that 20-year-old filled with ambition, desire, hopes, dreams.
Yeah,
and all that. You don't have the reflective way that you can look at that.
Listen,
lifestyle now.
we again, he was I considered him a dear friend, and we spent a lot of time together, and great memories of him. So for me, it was when he took the fight, it was like, oh right, okay, well that's fine, no problem with that. But again, I think I dropped him in the second round. He jumped up like a weevil straight back in front of my face and literally give it back to me. I thought, oh, normally when he goes, he stays down. I don't understand, But he gave me again. He took me the distance.
You managed to get that Oyebola rematch. A couple of things about that. One is it was here in Brighton.
Yeah.
Which is mega, really. On reflection, it's a long way from one seaside town in Atlantic City, from the first one to another seaside town down here in Brighton. What was that like, fighting him in the rematch? Because I guess you put a lot of pressure on yourself to avenge that legit loss.
Every day, I believed I was winning that fight, and I believe I shouldn't have lost that first fight. But again, people don't know the circumstances. There was circumstances going on around me. Not that it had an effect, because we don't know. But
are you talking personal stuff or logistical stuff?
No,
just being in America.
Being in America, and Herbie come out the couple of days before, and it was all a little bit crazy, and
just add Herbie into the mix.
Went into the fight probably believing that too much I was going to win, but as far as I was winning up till the stage when I got caught with the shot. So, and the shot I already had the broken jaw. The shot landed on the jaw, and it's the one that caught me on the temple, I believe, that put me down and put me kind of in cuckoo land.
Did having the rematch here in Brighton G you up, or did it put more pressure on you?
No, absolutely. I mean, I was ready for. I trained for James every single day after that fight. So even them fights that I had, it was James that was in my head. I trained with James's face on the bags, in my head, every single thing. I lived his, and I think it took like 16 months or something, wasn't it? Till I got the rematch.
Did it make you dislike him?
Oh, immensely. I mean, I would say I hated him because he took someone from me, you know. But the second we fought each other the second time, and we didn't see each other after that for a few months, and then when we saw each other, it was the love that you have for another opponent after you've kind of sorted it. I don't know whether it certainly felt like he had the same love for me. So we would hug each other when we see each other. The last time I spoke to him was before he got murdered, and literally I'd say a month before, and he told me, Scott, I want our families to get together. I want our families to be friends, which was wonderful. And I can still remember when I got told that he'd been shot in London, devastated. I mean, I cried tears, you know.
Because he was working on the door and he asked a couple of guys to stop smoking, is that right?
Walked over to some guys sitting in the smoking ban had just come in. Walked over to a couple of kids, by all accounts, 18, 20 years old, told them to stop smoking. And I think because of the size and everything about him, anyway, they called him over to the door as he was leaving, as they were leaving, didn't like the way he said it, called him over to the door and then shot him 3 times, and he died. So devastating. But I was in Italy, funnily enough, in a different part, and I got the phone call to say that he'd been shot, and honestly, I was devastated. And you know, every thought goes through your head. You want to get back. You want to get a gang on the street. We want to find them. We want to find them before the police got them, and everything. But.
So when you beat James in the rematch, Boxing News predicted that you'd lose a hard fight. I'll go back to Boxing News in a bit. You've had good and bad from Boxing News.
Yeah, I mean, I think. Listen, I got called some. I've been called a lot of things in my life, so you know, you don't worry too much about it. But I don't know. I believed I was an exciting fighter, and I believed that I did. I gave people told me afterwards that I gave them a lot of pleasure, but that's all I wanted to do. I didn't, you know, the politics and all the other stuff I don't really know. So I think sometimes it was harsh. Sometimes it makes you stronger by getting bad reviews and bad
motivates
things,
people,
you know.
things.
So I never really took much notice.
We'll
of
come
it
to
all.
the bad reviews because there's a couple of stinkers, isn't there? You know where I'm coming from.
Yeah, well, the world title fight.
What surprised me about this fight report, reading about the Oyebola fight, which by the way was a war and an absolute thriller, the rematch. Boxing News said by this point you were financially comfortable and you ran 2 rest homes, drove a Porsche, and lived in a nice house. Not bad for a British title contender.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
What was the thing with the rest homes? Did you own rest homes or manage rest homes?
My wife was brought up in a rest home.
Okay.
And as we went on, we put everything into building them homes. So I mean, listen, it was a lot of it. I turned up the first time I turned up in Matchroom. I was in a Porsche. You know, I had a Porsche. And again,
I bet Herbie liked that, didn't he?
Yeah, Herbie loved it. Yeah. So and I think he'd come from there. You know, the girls, everyone was like, "Oh, he's got a Porsche." So you know, and let's be honest, back in the '90s, early '90s, not many people had a Porsche, did they?
It would have been you and Nigel Benn in British
The fact
boxing,
that it had false number plates on it that we won't mention.
Yeah, but I mean, what an extraordinary background that is. The fact that that you'd obviously were doing well for yourself away from boxing. Did you even need to box? Or wait,
Listen,
I suppose we touched upon it earlier. You needed boxing to channel what you had to channel.
I was an angry, hungry guy, and that doesn't change. You know, you know, Holyfield, Tyson. You know, these guys, it's still in them now. You know, we don't change. We're not. You know, that never leaves you. I still want to do well now. I'm still, if somebody, you know, says the wrong things to you, you want to challenge them. So that never leaves you. So the fact that you earn money doesn't matter, because we've still got that in us to fight. You know, it does soften. I think my kids softened me more than the money. You know, that was the changing bit for me, having my daughter. So
the rematch, by the way, just so you can see, you do get some good press. Boxing News said it touched the heights of wild excitement. This was two men lambasting each other for the best part of half an hour.
Yeah.
So they were happy, mate.
Yeah.
And obviously you were happy because you'd avenged that one legit defeat to James.
Yeah.
Just on that money thing, Boxing News said you made 16 grand and called it small money, which I like. You stopped him, you hurt him to the body late, and then finished him. The Boxing News headline was Oyebola is crushed by Welch. Scott stars in a real cracker to avenge Atlantic City shocker.
Yeah.
You then went to Germany to fight Joe Bugner.
Yeah.
You stopped him in 6. I was going to ask why it was in Germany, but the board wouldn't license Joe to fight back here. He'd retired after Bruno. And then he'd had a couple of comeback fights in Australia, and the board didn't think that those fights were good enough for him to get a licence in Britain. What was your take on fighting Joe, and what did you want to gain out of it? Was it just a big name?
Listen, again, we'll fight whoever they put in front of us. You know, that's the thing. All this talk about, you know, we that's what we do. It's what we do for a living, and you know, some of us don't care who we fight. You know, I believe. We do think about it, but you know, if they tell us we're fighting it in them days, we didn't have a choice. You know, I think Herbie kind of understood the game better than most, and he knew that fighting Jimmy Thunder at that time wasn't the right thing to do. And you know, he signed to fight me at a stage in my career as well. We signed a fight for the world title when Herbie won it the second time, and he pulled out of that. He knew that probably wasn't the right time. So he was very, very clever, Herbie, and understood the game very, very well. So whereas I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have anybody kind of talking to me or educating me at all, really. Jimmy was the closest thing to that as a trainer. And again, you know, how he come on board was all fitness, but I'm probably rushing ahead of myself again.
No, it's good. It's all interesting. I mean, what did you want from fighting Joe, though? Like, obviously, I know you said you've got to fight who's put in front of you.
So Joe, again, they offered me an older guy, right?
Who turned pro a year before you were born.
If you put somebody in front of me and he's older, great. He's getting knocked out quicker than most. He's in my head again. I looked at it, I thought. But I remember walking into the press conference, and he was massive. I think he weighed 18 stone 10.
That's
he was
right.
6'4". His head. I've got a picture of him. Me and him have got fists together, and his fist is double the size of my fist. And I remember looking at him thinking, Jesus, he's massive, you know. But then, in my head, I'm a quick heavyweight. So that's going to be an easier target for me, you know.
Yeah, Boxing News obviously said that you were younger and fitter. And Joe said, actually, very sportingly in the report of that fight, that you'd done his ribs.
Yeah.
And then you stopped him in the 6th round. That's right. Is that how you remember it? You hurt him to the body and then stopped him by being too busy and fit for him?
Well, again, I think I'd been... We worked on... He had a jab, and we worked on a jab. So I didn't fight Joe. I boxed Joe because we worked on... getting around his jab. He had a world-class jab. So this jab, obviously, he'd been in with Ali twice and Frazier twice, and you know, an incredible guy. So I gave him the respect. I think I told him I had a room in one of the homes as well at one stage for after the fight. But he got in the ring, and he actually gave me a more awkward fight than I envisioned. So I stayed away. Nothing really happened for 5 rounds, and I come back to the corner. And me and Jimmy said, right, this is it now. We've got to get him out. I've got to get him out this round. And then I went out there and literally blitzed him and dropped him and got him out. But again, become great friends afterwards. He actually come down to my house along the road and become very good friends for a few years.
Did you? And then, so Joe, you didn't get any criticism for fighting Joe, did you?
It was the same.
Did you get anything from the board for fighting him, given that they wouldn't license him in the UK?
No, I mean it was the same night as Tyson Bruno, wasn't it? It was the same night as Tyson Bruno, March the 13th, '96, and so I think everything was caught up on that. To be honest,
you ever spar Frank?
I did, yeah. I had great memories with Frank. I was with him a couple of weeks ago actually with a WBC book, but so I got called again. I was a massive Frank fan, and I grew up kind of like with his pictures in my, my little album, photo album, as you have as a kid or used to have as a kid, and so of course it was an honour to go along, and Terry Dunstan got me in. He said, "Look, Scott, come along. You can spar him." Anyway, Terry, first day in, Terry jumped in the ring with him and warmed him up. So he was like warming him up. And I thought, so again, in my head, I'd got the better. So me and Terry were in camp together for a long time, a few years, and used to have proper heated, tough spars, and but in my head, again, I'd caught Terry, so in my head I knew that I could beat him, So then when he's sparring Frank, I'm thinking that's the best Frank's got, and he's handling with Terry. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna make a name for myself and go in there and spar him. And the first day in, I jumped in the ring. He'd just warmed up 2 rounds. I thought that was easy work. I'll deal with this, no problem. Ran straight at him. I think I weighed 15 stone 4 or something. He was 18 stone.
And chiselled.
And chiselled. And I think I ran out, and he launched this shot that caught me around the back of the head. And as I fell forward, luckily he was in front of me, so I grabbed hold of him. And I remember spinning him round, looking up at the ceiling, and thinking a lump of concrete had fallen out and hit me on the back of the head. And I was looking, honestly, I thought there's no way that was a punch. Someone's just dropped and hit me on the head. And a massive puncher. And again, after that, he took me, he bashed me up the first day, and then it got better as the week went on, and then I got sacked I think I was sacked by the Thursdays. So, which was great. So
so you mentioned there obviously Bruno fighting Tyson. You actually fought on the Tyson-Holyfield bill in Vegas, the first fight, which was the big shock, not the bite fight, but the big shot where Evander, everyone thought he was going to keel over with a heart attack at some point in the fight.
Yeah.
He actually shocked the world. But you fought Neto on that undercard.
Yeah.
What was that experience like of being in Vegas for a Tyson fight week and having your part on the bill?
Well, I'd been training with Shannon Briggs. We'd been sparring in New Jersey, in Orange County. He had a big, beautiful place in Orange County, and so I'd been sent there. I was supposed to fight in Manchester on the same night as Tyson-Holyfield. Right. So, and then while I was out there, I mean, I had a great kind of relationship with Frank over the years, and anyway, while I was out there, he knew that I was a big kind of Tyson fan as well, and anyway, they rang me up and said, "Scott, do you want to go to Vegas to fight on the undercard of Tyson instead of fighting?" And I was like, "Wow, definitely, I'm in." So I went straight from camp with Shannon to there, and I remember, so I was there for about a week. Me and Jimmy was there for about a week and a half or something before, and the weather was like, so I expected Vegas to be beautiful and sunny, and it was at this time, it was November, and it wasn't great at all. But anyway, we'd done the training, but my memory was walking into the pre-fight press conference, and everyone. I think there was like 10 or 12 tables on all with with the big names, who were all saying every one of them picked Tyson to knock out Holyfield apart from Lou Duva.
Right.
And Lou Duva stood up and he went, "There's no way Evander's getting beat tonight. I know Evander, and Evander's going to beat." And he got laughed at, honestly. It was because he'd had the bad fight with Bobby Ches, and like you say, he had the heart scare and all this kind of stuff.
Shaking him a few years earlier, and people were like, "Oh, he couldn't
so
take
he's
that."
like, "Oh, he's finished." And but I remember, so I went in the changing room before the fight with Holyfield, and he was sitting in the chair, and it was very memorable for me. And he just sat there, and that big grin on his face, the big half grin, and he looked at me. I said, "Evan, I want to wish you all the best," and he looked at me like that. He had one glove on his hand, sitting in the chair, and he's punched the hand, and he just said, "I will prevail. I will prevail." And like that was like, wow. And I walked out thinking, he's nuts. He's going to get knocked out. And honestly, it was just incredible. I mean, it was incredible to see him, to be part of.
He obviously is one who talked himself into believing that he could do anything. And he said, in fact, he just texted me a minute ago. He sends me a proverb every day.
Wow.
And it's all about positive thought and biblical passages and stuff.
Yeah.
Really interesting. Obviously, it's a guy who's taught himself a lot over the years.
Yeah.
Did you love being in Vegas on that bill, being part of the big show?
Mate, it was, for me, incredible build up, incredible. I mean, so I had my first amateur fight at 19 in 87. So, Mike Tyson was champion of the world. I remember in 1990 when he got beat, we all thought he was superhuman. I mean, at the time he was an absolute monster.
I remember then. People thought he was going to hold the title.
We couldn't believe, and especially Buster Douglas. But again, the story, there's a massive story behind the Buster Douglas thing, isn't it? With his mum, and he told her that he'd, I mean, there's a couple of very, very unbelievable stories. So that was one of them, and the other one for me was the Kevin McBride one. Have you heard that story or not?
Go on.
About him, what his dad told him many years before. He said, "Son, if you ever fight Mike Tyson, you'll beat him." And he said it was the only fight he ever trained for, and all he did. So he lost his father when he was young as well. So so when they asked him to do the fight, it was the only fight that he really ever. So he told me the story in Vegas. I bumped into him, and again, we go back years from when he was in the Olympics. So we sparred together back in, I think he was an Olympian for Ireland in '92, wasn't he? So Kevin. So yeah. So he told me the story. Incredible.
Then obviously, once you got that fight with Daniel Neto out of the way. Then came your big opportunity, and it was Henry Akinwande. And it's a strange one because you guys fought in Tennessee, two British heavyweights fighting for a world title in Tennessee. Had you sparred Henry before?
Never sparred Henry. Again, I'd watched him. I think he stunk the joint out in London with Johnny Nelson when they both had a. Right. They had a fight and they were kind of like, there was no action, and they kind of like, so he was a very long, awkward guy.
Yep.
that knew exactly what to do as well. So
Is it fair to say he was a better version of Oyebola though?
Without a shadow of a doubt. I'd say he was before the Klitschko's. I believe the Klitschko's watched him and saw how he operated and kind of not copied him, but adjusted their stuff. So he was very, very. He used his reach again. He had 11 inches in reach on me and 6 inches in height or something. And he was he was a real great boxing guy. I mean, the best for me I've ever been in the ring with on the fight as a fight.
So I was reading the Boxing News preview issues, and they were great. There was some really good stuff written about you at the time. it said you said Jimmy Mack has given me so much belief in myself. You got Steve Collins in to help with your mental prep.
Yeah.
Jimmy Mack said only Holyfield could match you for fitness. You were doing 9 1,000 meter runs at around 3:20 pace, which is pretty insane.
Yeah.
And Jim was saying win and you become a £1 million fighter and you're up there along the likes of Nick Faldo and Damon Hill.
Man.
So there's a lot of stuff going in here. You're obviously leaving nothing for chance mentally and physically.
Yeah.
How did you feel going into it? Did you feel bulletproof?
So again, you know, all the sparring was going well. I think I tried to get John in it. So I had a big say in my career. So Jimmy was, as far as I was concerned, Jimmy was my guy on the fitness. He took me to another level on the fitness. So he got me running. He told me, you know, where I'd probably have 2 days off a week running, 2 or 3 days. I'd run for probably 2 or 3 days a week on average. And then Jimmy was like, you're missing 2 days. You know, you got to run 5 days a week. I'm like, why do I have to? Because it's going to make a difference to you, and so your engine and everything. So he kind of educated me more on the fitness, but I would always want to do more. So I was always kind of like, he got me on the running side of it. The running, I believe, for me, running is a very important side of the boxing. It's, you know, maybe with today's technology and everything, everyone knows, they're obviously a lot more skilled and understand a lot more now. But at that time, I believed that the running was the key for me personally, and it opened the door to. That's when I become a champion. And my mindset, I worked a lot on mindset. Me and Jimmy used to do a few bits and pieces, but again, I was a very determined guy. So that's...
What does Steve... Was Steve really just a pal that you brought in?
Steve Collins. So, yeah, me and Steve used to share a house together, Matchroom again, like we said, with Herbie.
What house that would be?
It was incredible. It was incredible.
Set up some TV cameras in there and watch that.
Yeah, it was incredible. And Steve had just come back from America. He'd fought all the greats he'd fought McCallum and Reggie Johnson and Sambu Kalambe. So, and I think he was coming off 3 or 4 losses. Come back to England, and of course he got mugged on all his monies out in America. Come back and start again. Everyone thought he was a millionaire from the money that he'd earned out of there, and as it was in them days, that's how they got treated, wasn't it? So anyway, he came back, and he, remember when he beat Eubank, he had supposedly the hypnotist guy and all this, and I actually saw that guy who he had, so he'd kind of like talk to me. But again, what I understand now is we want to hear what we're going to do, you know. So it's another form of kind of just telling you and reminding you how good you are. And
positive reinforcement.
Yeah, positive reinforcement. And again, Steve was my pal. So Steve come out, you know, we sat down, we talked, and, you know, he gave me a lot more. He added to, again, he's a guy that went out there and done it, wasn't he? So
it was a big Don King bill. Did you have much to do with Don out there?
He was like Scotty Welch, the British Bulldog, you know, and like, yeah, I mean, he was a good guy at the time. You know, some of the stories that I've heard of him,
not so good.
Yeah, I mean, he is what he is. But I mean, again, in the preparation for that fight, you know, and again, it's not that I want to make excuses, but there was something quite big in my life before that was going on that people don't understand, and it was just me personally, something that was going on with me in my health. So, you know, I had to deal with that, and
Were you injured?
Yeah, no, there was something going on with me at the time, so it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant now. But I mean, And I had to deal with that. And each of these fights, we fought so hard that I believe, I believe we all have to do it at top level, and I'm not sure that the guys do now, but I'm sure they do. They accept if we die in the ring, that's what we accepted. That was what I accepted. So each fight, I was told to fight as hard as you can, leave everything in the ring, and I accepted that when I went out to fight, if I die, then I die, and I just had my son. So yeah, I hadn't had my daughter. I just had my son, and going into this fight was a massive mental thing for me for what was going on, and I couldn't tell anyone. Didn't tell Jimmy. Didn't tell anybody, and didn't know whether I was going to get out. That was the problem. So I believe that maybe I didn't fight as hard as I should have done after everything that was said. But again, it's very hard to deal with when you've got nobody around you that really you can ask and
that was really steering the ship.
And yeah, so it was all me. So I had to make the decisions. I had to do everything. So
was it that tension that meant that you and Henry nearly got into it at the press conference?
No. That was just me dealing with the fact that we were pals and I liked him, and I have to fight harder. I have to dislike him. So I made myself call him names and try and get him involved in a mental.
Did it work? Or
yeah,
backfire?
fight. No. it massively backfired in my eyes because I believe he fought a great fight that night, and that wasn't the same Henry that I'd kind of seen and prepared for. I mean, the first ever time I set up camp in Eastbourne, and the first time I watched the videotape of him, I remember pulling that. Because he fought Alex Zolkin on the Tyson-Holyfield card the same night as me, and Alex Zolkin was a good Russian fighter, tough as old boots, and I think he made him look like the Elephant Man and stopped him in about 11 rounds, didn't he? So, and I watched that tape, and I remember taking the video tape out in camp and booting it around the room, jumping up and down on it, thinking, shit, how am I going to beat this guy? I can't beat this guy. He's too good for me, He had the answers to. He's beat Alex Zolkin, that I considered a better guy. He had a better record than me. I think we had the same record, but I think his level of opponents were a lot higher. So to try and deal with that mentally and going into the fight thinking, wow, I've got a real tough night's work, and I'm not sure. But
describe the fight with Henry. How did it go?
Again, I up until all the training that I did, I knew that I could punch. So the only thing I went into that fight with was honestly believing that I believed I could knock anybody out at the time, and I believed that if I hit him, I could knock him out. And that was the only way I went in. That was the only thing I had. I didn't go out because I knew I couldn't outbox him. I knew I couldn't. But my plan was, at some stage during these 12 rounds, I'm going to catch him and knock him out.
You were talking to each other in there for a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I've never spoke to anybody, never spoke to any fighter in my life. And for some reason, Henry, every time he grabbed hold of me, I'm like, get off me. What are you holding for? What are you holding me for? And I think he caught me he rocked me in the sixth against the ropes, and then I caught him with a shot in I think the eighth, and he said in the Boxing Monthly afterwards that it was the hardest he'd ever been hit. So I knew I hurt him, and I grabbed hold of him. Oh, he grabbed hold of me, and I said, get off me, you're fucking gone, you're gone, get off me. But he held me for dear life. But
do you want to hear the bad stuff now?
Go on then, give me it.
Boxing News called the fight a pitiful spectacle. They criticised you for backing off and holding and said most of the blame should go to you. The headline was, Welch, a disgrace.
Yeah.
How hard was the aftermath of that fight?
Again, listen, I got.
Oh, sorry. Promoter Frank Warren was fuming. Said you fought like Johnny Nelson did against Carlos de Leon.
Yeah.
And he said that you'd actually apologised for your performance.
Listen, like I said to you, no one knows what went on. Okay, it's very hard to criticise a man if you've never stood in his shoes. You didn't know what was going on. There was something going on with me which I believed I was going to lose my life in the ring, and I had to deal with that.
So
mentally.
you were in turmoil.
I was in. Yeah, I had something going on. Couldn't tell anybody. Went into the fight and did not fight the fight I wanted to fight. But what I had to secure at the time was my family. So rather than pull out of that fight, I went ahead with that, and I dealt with what I was dealing with, and that was a lifetime's worth of money. You know, you're not gonna. So I went ahead with it. I swear, I put my hands on my heart. I walked out into that fight believing that I was going to fight the hardest fight I could fight. You know, believing that if I do die, then I swear that I'm happy. I can go because my family's taken care of with that money.
If you could do it differently, would you have done it differently? That fight.
Listen, you build these guys up to be something. I think it was 34-0 or something at the time.
34-0, one draw.
34-0, never been beat, 20 odd knockouts. I mean, this guy was a fucking monster to me at the time, you know. And I thought, you know, I'm a guy. As we say, I think, I don't know. I was a confident guy in what I do, but I wasn't confident in this world, like the Lennoxes and these were gods. These were like, and I think he was a WBO champion. I didn't look at him as a god, but I looked at him as a very decent fighter. You know, knowing that at 6'7", he's got knockout power. He's knocked out. I think he knocked out Jeremy Williams quite badly, didn't he, in the previous fight to me, or two fights before. So we go out. We know that we know how good. I knew how good he was, but I also believed that I could still win.
Was Gary Mason part of your team at that point?
Gary Mason was was another friend. I'd been to his wedding and everything, but Gary was a bit nuts because Gary turned up. Gary turned up on the first week of camp with a bit of paper, telling me that he wants to be my manager and take over. You know, I'm like, Gary, I'm fighting for Gary. I'm fighting for the world title. He's like, no, I'll be your manager. Tell him that I'm like, mate, it's all sorted. It's done. I'm up to the neck in that. It's all done. And he's like, you know, but he was a good guy, Gary. I had a lot of fun with him.
Did you ever spar him?
I never sparred him. No. He was a tough guy.
So it took you 6 months to come back from that fight, and then you fought Yuri Yelistratov. Boxing News said you were back with a bang. Gary and Oyebola, James, obviously we've touched upon, they both have gone subsequently. Does when you lose contemporaries like that, does it make you think of your own mortality? Even if they did die in sort of
I mean, listen, I honestly take life day to day. I don't plan. I think I'm very lucky. I thought I'd be dead by the age of 30. You know, the fact that I'm still here now and I'm doing what I'm doing and I've got a life is incredible. And I do say my thanks and I give back by doing what I do with all the other stuff. You know,
yeah, sure.
I don't take life for granted at all. You know, I'm losing people around me constant. So and at all different ages. One of my best pals died at 42, cancer. So you know, I don't. I live for today, and just try and do what I can do now. You know.
Boxing News said you were given all you could handle by awkward Peter Obo, who would obviously go on to become one of the most avoided men in British boxing. You were mandatory for the European title held by Mavrovic at the time, who would obviously fight Lennox. But you didn't box again for 14 months. What happened?
Again, I was training for Zeljko Malkovic. Again, I went to Gleason's.
For the European title? You were going to have a European title fight?
Yeah, for the European title. I think there was what went on. Someone went on, and then it switched to. I think it switched from Zeljko Malkovic to the German Axel Schultz.
Right.
And we then trained for that. I think I got injured the first time, back injury. I think it then switched to. I think we were down to fight 3 times for the European in that time, and he got injured, and then the third fight got called off or something. So
basically, the stars didn't ever align.
Yeah, so we were training to fight each other. Anyway, that didn't happen. I then signed to fight Herbie. That didn't happen, and then I think, signed to fight Herbie. Then I was fighting Pelly Reid. Then that didn't happen, and then literally it was So after that,
first
who
fight
did I
back
fight?
with
It was
Michael
Murray. Yeah, it was Murray. So again, all these names had come and gone, and then I ended up fighting Michael Murray. So
you came back, and at the time you were saying to Boxing News that you wanted to fight Herbie, and that seemed to be the main purpose of the comeback. Did Herbie just have something you wanted, or did you have a little grudge that you wanted to settle with him?
we always had a grudge. Listen, Herbie was a unique individual. A unique individual, right? I haven't met anyone since like him, and I hopefully won't. But me and Herbie I believe we're deep down, we'll always have a great affection for each other. But we just 1 minute we're friends, and then another minute we're.
When was the last time you spoke to him?
Probably about 3 years ago now.
Was it friendly?
No, that wasn't friendly. So,
but it might be next time.
Yeah, listen.
Then came Julius Francis again. He was in the form of his career. He'd beaten Pelly Reid and Danny Williams and fought you. You were now being trained by Howard Rainey. Boxing News said it was a close but dull fight. You thought you'd done enough. Boxing News headline: Julius wins a sleepwalk.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's like when you. So I'd been sparring all the way through. I'd been training all the way through, but you know when you have a break, it obviously affects you. You know, I know now as an experienced guy, I can tell these guys. Look, I told Dimitrenko when I trained Dimitrenko for 4.5 weeks before the Pulev fight. Pulev had 15 fights in 3 years. Dimitrenko had 3 fights in 3 years. I said, listen, you're a big man. You're a 6'7" guy. You're going to get hit with everything. You ain't going to be as quick as them. You ain't going to move. You ain't going to do this. You ain't going to do that. This is a real serious fight, and I don't think you can win. He didn't listen to me. He said, look, Scott, don't worry, my friend. We'll take the fight, blah, blah, blah. Took the fight, and he'd never been cut. And I told him, listen, he's wearing punches gloves. We're going to get cut. We didn't have a cuts man. I said, look, you need to get a cuts man the day before, otherwise I'm not doing the fight. They then got a cuts man. He ended up with a 3-inch vertical gash and a 4-inch horizontal gash over both eyes. So again, that was because he hadn't had the ring warfare, and you know, we'd.
You wanted that activity.
Yeah, you know that you I think Julius had 3 fights in kind of like 6 months
at a decent level.
That was Danny Williams,
Pelly Reid,
and the African, wasn't it? The African kid.
I can't remember who that was.
Silver medalist, ex-cruiserweight silver medalist, good fighter. So he'd beat 3 guys in a row, all good fighters coming on to me. I'd dealt with Julius I'd dealt with him in the gym on numerous occasions. Julius wasn't that much of a threat to me. I didn't believe at the time, and again, different scenarios, different people in the corners. The first fight I fought him, we had somebody there telling me, I think you're behind. Howard Rainey told me I'd won every round. Another one in the bank, son, another one in the bank. So I believed I'd won every round. So when it gets to the 11th or 12th round, there's no urgency to say, right, we've got to knock him out, or we've got to do something. You know, I was at a pace where I was being told, another one in the bank, another one in the bank. You know, again, you learn. I've never told a fighter that I don't believe, even if they're winning that round, I don't believe that I can say to you that you've won that round, because these guys might have a different thing on paper. So I tell everyone, listen, I don't care whether we think we won the round, we need to go out and win the round. So let's up a gear and get out there. So again, what can you say? You can't say anything afterwards.
I mean, it looked like you and Rainey, judging by the replays, you thought you'd won and you celebrated at the end.
Listen, Julius come up to me in the ring and said, Scott, you won that fight. I thought I'd won the fight comfortable, and it went split decision, and he got the decision. But he was the champion. And when I watched it back on the fight, on the thing, I was shocked because it was closer than what I thought, and he got it. And listen, my trainers should have been telling me, Scott, you need to win this, mate. You need to win this, you know. And I believe I still had energy in me that I could have upped the gear and done way better when I got beat. Of course, that was the Mike Tyson fight, the next fight, and they told us that before that you were going to fight Mike Tyson, the winner. But I'd been told that kind of like previous, Scott, we're going to get you the Tyson fight, and it hadn't come off. So I didn't really go into the Julius fight believing that the winner was going to fight Mike Tyson.
And Foreman in your career.
Yeah. That'd have been nice.
I mean, it's a nice house now. But
Yeah. Yeah.
So that seemed to leave a sour taste, that Julius one. And Boxing News said Welch said he will never fight again, announcing his retirement, complaining he has nothing left to prove, no love for the game, and is financially well off. Though it should be noted, Scott's wealth has been earned through business ventures outside of the ring. You said that was it, and that was it.
Yeah. I mean, a few people over the years tried to get me out of it, you know. But
that sounds Hagler-esque though, a bit hacked off and thinking, no, I'm just done with it.
Again, so there's a story behind it. So I was using. So when I fought on that Tyson-Holyfield bill, I saw these guys walk out with like 5-6 people in their entourages, or 10 people in their entourages, should I say, and I wanted to prepare like them. So I then took a masseuse guy on. I then took a strength and conditioning guy on. I then took Jimmy, the runner, nutritionist, this. And I believed I was going to get better. But them camps were costing me thousands. I mean, I was paying, this is I can't believe this. I was paying £1,000 a week, sparring partners in '95. These guys now are still paying £1,000. And I'm like, how can that be in this day and age? And these purses that are going up through the roof, these guys should be getting £10,000 a week now, surely sparring. Yeah. Because what we know now, again, with the brain damage and everything that we know, I mean, these camps were horrendous. Horrendous camps.
So if I say tequila for breakfast, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, and it means sparring partners coming down and putting tequila on their cornflakes.
Because they know what's
coming. Yeah, they know what's coming. So,
you said that obviously there were offers there to fight again. Did you want to fight again? Did you have that itch that so many fighters have, or were you quite bitter?
No, I got so I finished boxing. I went straight to London. I was doing building in London, and over the year that I'd been retired, I think I'd kind of made about 300,000 in that year. And, it was or gone through 300,000 in work, and they offered me. I think at 2 weeks' notice, they offered me to fight Klitschko on the undercard of Lennox Grant in New York, and I think they start.
Which Klitschko?
Vladimir, and I think the starting figure was 60,000, and I wanted 100 again. 100,000 then was a lot of money. So I said, look, I'll do it as a business move rather than a thing. I understand the game. I hadn't hit a bag for a year, so I'm not going to be no fool and try and think I'm going to win. I've probably got 1 or 2 rounds in me.
So basically you're selling your name by this point.
Yeah, I mean...
You're a gatekeeper.
No. I'd been retired, so I didn't even know. And then I got the call, and it's a dangerous business. Listen, if I'm going to get in there a year, not hitting a bag in a year, you know, I need to be paid for it. Number one, I understand the game. This is a killing game. You
That's
know,
the price.
we ain't guaranteed to get out of that ring once you step in that ring. So, you know, if we're going to do it, we want paying for it, and that's what we want.
Did you ever spar Lennox?
I never sparred Lennox. I'm again very good friends with him, and he's a great man and a great.
One thing I wanted to ask you is obviously there's been a lot of PED issues in boxing over the last recent years. How big was it back in the day with your heavyweights and your contemporaries?
Again, it was you know, I was told that quite a few of the guys was on it. Different things. Again, I didn't dare do anything in my career, so I didn't want to mess up. And you know, I think at top level, you can get away with a lot more than what you can at the lower level. So I was never interested in even trying it. But I think at top level, they were getting. I think in America, instead of getting tested in Vegas, where they test you for it, they were going further down country and getting tested, like in Alabama and things like that. And
well, all the states have their own independent rules and regs.
Yeah, I think it was Tommy Morrison in America who was like the White Hope, and it was me in England type of thing. So us guys there, we were. I mean, all the other guys were kind of. All the great champions were all black at the time, weren't they? So
Tommy was a big lump. Tommy admitted to taking stuff.
Yeah, Tommy was definitely taking stuff. Yeah.
Is it something that you feel should be strongly addressed now in boxing?
Listen, again, we've got the power to kind of like do it all, but I mean, you know, UFC was riddled with it at one stage, wasn't it? So, and I think everything's moved forward, and these guys, I don't know what they take. I haven't got a clue, but I mean, there's stuff that like, I mean, creatine. I took creatine at the end of my career. I thought that was great. You know, I mean, God knows what else there is, but creatine I thought was good. But I mean, I don't know. A lot of the guys were. And are they on it now? I don't know. You know, everyone used to think Herbie was on it because of the physique he had, and he had this natural, incredible physique. But you know, I'm sure that Herbie never took nothing. And you know, but he looked in incredible shape. You know, you got Joshua looking in incredible shape. So I mean,
yeah, some people genetically.
Yeah, absolutely. Huge. Like you creep. Yeah.
We've talked. I mean, we mentioned at the start about us chatting in Rome back at the start, and we actually were talking a lot about damage at the time, weren't we? And the damage that people take and fighters take, and it's something that, you know, when you talked earlier, there you were talking about prepared to sacrifice, make the ultimate sacrifice in the ring on the night. But perhaps what a young, ambitious pro doesn't think about is what the damage he's taking at that point in his career will take down the line.
Yeah.
That's something you've become really conscious of, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm an advocate for safety in boxing. I believe that what we've got to understand now is like the Dubois thing, right? So, what do I think of that? Do I think he quit? No, he didn't quit. There's no. Listen, this guy's got in this ring to fight. You know. Has he accepted that he may die in there? He should have done, you know, he should have done. But did he use his brain here and understand that I could lose my eye? We're in the 21st century now. We're not in the 18th, 19th century anymore. So do I think he done the right decision? Absolutely. Do I think that maybe I'd have done the same? I would hope I would have done the same back in the 90s, but I probably, we didn't. That wasn't in our head to understand the game then. We just did. We got in that ring. We're fighting to the death, if need be, and that's it. So we are being educated every day. This is the education now. Do we need to take that punishment? No, we don't. Can we come back and fight another guy? Daniel Dubois is a hell of a fighter, and he will be, you know, the next champ somewhere along the line, if he does it correctly, he's got another chance now. He may not have had another chance. This is the thing.
And your record, you were 22-4 by the end, so only 26 fights and retired by, what, about the age of 30?
31, yeah.
But what we've obviously talked about a lot here is the ding-dongs you've had in sparring.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's your take home from that now? Like, do you regret having had all those wars and all that stuff that you've done in sparring?
I think it's unnecessary. I mean, you know, again, it was all about, the knockouts that I witnessed and I was involved in, you know, somebody was getting knocked out every day. That's what it seems like, you know. If I didn't hurt somebody or knock somebody out, I haven't done my job in sparring. That's how I used to look at it. So it was that, you know, I mean, it was that tough. You know, that was my own perception of me and what I was doing. Again, I don't know. We were getting the reports back from America. Tyson had 9 sparring partners, was knocking all 9 out, you know. They were going to the hospitals. The ambulances was picking them up and taking them to the hospital. So that was what the mentality was. So the mentality was, if he's doing it, then we've got to do it, you know. And I don't know. Again, Herbie was vicious in sparring. I mean, I see him knock out a lot of people. So
your son started. Your son's turned over now.
Yeah.
So what sort of lessons are you teaching him via sparring, and how do you want him to spar?
Again, he did think it was all about the same kind of mentality, but I've educated him now. You know, he's being educated all the time. I mean, he's only really, so he's had 4 or 5 years in the wilderness. He won the juniors, and he's had 4 or 5 years now in the wilderness where he's had 1 or 2 fights. We kind of had a bit of a divide between us because I wanted him to train properly and he wouldn't train, and he just got lost. He's come back since the lockdown. He's trained unbelievable for the last 6 months, and the rust is now coming off. I mean, I believed he was going to be something special. Me, you know, between me and my wife, we're very different, and she's got some great attributes with her, which I believe would make a great champion. So I always said that if my boy boxes, he's going to be a champ, and you know, that's what we always said. So and he was a junior champ, and now we'll see whether he can do it in the pros. But he's he can do whatever he wants to do, I believe.
Do you feel damaged from the game?
I do feel damaged. You know, I mean, there's certain things that go on with me that I put down to being in the game. But I mean, listen, I love boxing. I love everything it's given me. It's given me an identity, given me a life. It's a sport. It's a damaging sport. It's a killing sport, and it's a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful sport if you get it right, you know. And you can become, you know, to take these guys from. The majority of guys in boxing are going nowhere in their lives and they're on the wrong path. So what boxing does, gets them on the right path, and there's a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And that pot of gold is incredible for them to touch. Like Joshua, you know, let's take his little story. Incredible, fantastic, brilliant to see, you know, Tyson Fury. I mean, what a guy he is to come from what he's done, and, you know, so the stories are all out there, and the history is full of them, you know. And but there is a side to it that once they get put on the heap, it's a bad, terrible place. And what I'd like to see in boxing is more help. I believe that Joshua has changed the game completely. The Joshua touch changed the game. He's helped the game. He's been absolutely fantastic for the game. And he's a hell of a man as well.
In terms of taking it to a new audience and commercially and stuff.
I mean, Eddie Hearn has done the job, but he needed a Joshua to open the doors and do it all, you know. So between them, they've done amazing. Yeah.
And, you know, despite, you know, we've mentioned all these big names you fought, and the biggest name that you've ever knocked out is still Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Which is true. I mean, so many people.
Hang on. I knocked him out, and then he gets up and knocks me out.
Did you actually? Not did you actually knock him out? Was it actually him, or was you using a stunt double?
No. There was a stunt. I did a load of stuff.
Some of the stunt double stuff.
I didn't work with Richie on it, but I worked with the guy out of the Peacock, Scott Dixon. So I had to do a couple of scenes with Scott in a wig and covered in tattoos, which was hilarious. But the majority, I did do the majority with Brad. So we done 5 days. 5 days, and then I come back for another day when he did the water scene when he goes in the water. So
did you hit him once just to keep him honest? Or
I had to well, we trained for 5 weeks before. He was staying at Sting's house in Highgate, and I used to go around there and train him. And then I had a big 1000cc Ducati at the time that I was running around on, so I'd go to wherever he was training and where he was filming. And then we'd just do some moves. But he'd done the Fight Club, but he'd never actually done boxing training. So I had him doing the Ali Shuffle and loads of stuff.
At the time, you said a film star lifestyle would be great if I hadn't done anything in my life. But I'm pleased with what I've achieved. I've had my career. My career was boxing.
Yeah. Well, again, I'd been away for 7 years. I had a wife and 2 kids. And to get caught up in that world would have took me off. I mean, I used to go to school with Statham, so he's gone off and done absolutely incredible.
Did you? You stay in touch with him or not?
Yeah, we're still in touch. Yeah, not too much, but we,
You look like a heavyweight Jason Statham.
It's the old pals whenever we see each
Though.
other. Yeah.
I better not get into a conversation about hair anyway.
So.
With regards to, there's also a lot of stuff you've done post-boxing that's helped a lot of people. So obviously you're part of the WBC with the WBC Cares. You've got a wheelchair boxing initiative. And before we get to that, I just wanted to talk about some of your charity stuff, because it makes me think that obviously you've addressed this inner rage that you've had by doing extraordinary feats, like running the Marathon Des Sables, which you're probably the only heavyweight boxer who's ever run that, 250 miles through the desert. Which my brother's done. You climbed Kilimanjaro, and you what was it? You tracked the
Atacama Desert. Yeah, well, I've done a few bits. I've since done Machu Picchu. I've done this year. This year we done, or last year. Last year, before lockdown, we done Morocco. No, this year we done Morocco. This year done can't remember the name of the mountain.
Well, what is it about those things that do?
So
is it purely a money raiser, or is it a challenge?
In 2003, I lost my sister-in-law, and since that, I promised that I'd do something every year. To raise money for charity. So yeah, that's what I've done really.
So is that's the motivation, and that's what's driven you through these challenges?
Yeah, that was the beginning of it, and that was the reason why. And then you go through, you do them. And you raise money and everything was great, but the challenges, you build a body in boxing, and that body can go through anything, So I'm still lucky enough to have a lot of the fitness and strength still from there. Even at 52, I believe that I've built an incredible body, so I can use that to do certain things, So, and if we can raise money and do all the bits and pieces in between, then great.
What was that Marathon Des Sables like? Was that hell on earth?
That was tough. It wasn't. Yeah, it still wasn't as tough as some of my training for the world title, though.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, that was. That was a pleasure to do. Believe it or not.
And then the wheelchair boxing stuff has taken off, and obviously we've seen a lot of that on social media. It's an incredible initiative and something that we've spoken about for a couple of years, and something you're really passionate about, isn't it?
Yeah, again, I was at an SAS do. I've got a friend, Phil Campion, quite a good friend, and I was at his do, and these two guys come out, and in the wheelchairs, and I watched it and was like, and they almost, for me, it was too hard. They were almost knocking each other out, and I was like, wow, yeah. And Chris Middleton, again, great guy, got blown up in Afghanistan, lost both his legs. When I saw him, I was like, so inspirational. And like, I went up to him afterwards and said, look, how did you find that? He went, well, I nearly got knocked out. You know, the other guy said, oh yeah, but you hurt me first, and you know, like this. So I was like, I thought, wow, this is incredible, but I would never want to see you get knocked out, because to go through that, of what we know about boxing and what it does, why would we want to see that? We wouldn't. So what can I do, being part of the WBC? What could I do to make that? So first of all, it started off just helping him to understand the boxing and using his defences and different stuff. And then the more we worked, we then started to see, wow, this is incredible. We can get this out to people and let them know. And this can be mental health, it can be fitness, it can be strength, you know, all these kind of things together. And it doesn't matter so much about the boxing side of it, you know. So that's where that started. And then from there, we then got doing shows where we could showcase that. And then we ended up taking it last year to Mexico.
And you're still doing work with Youth at Risk.
We got some initiatives running with them, and
Is that independently, not with the WBC?
Yeah, it's all WBC stuff. Yeah, everything. I mean the Youths at Risk, the wheelchair boxing, adaptive boxing. It's all under the WBC, which again is which for me again that come around because of James' death as well. So
James Oyebola.
Yeah. So because we both fought for the WBC International, and then they awarded me. So for the charity work that I'd done before, they awarded me the belt on behalf of James, and I said that I would be happy to carry on doing great work.
I see.
In memory of James.
So was that how the link up with the WBC came about?
That's how the link up come about. Yeah, good. Again, my partner in the WBC is a guy called Dave Walker, and he's again a guy that's been involved with them for, I think, the longest in the UK.
For all the stuff they get slated for, sanctioning bodies, the WBC does do some good stuff behind the scenes.
Incredible. I mean, they are an amazing outfit, and Maurizio Suleiman is a very, very special man. For the people wouldn't even understand what his life would be like at the level that he's at, with the phone calls and everything. How he does it. Me dealing with just the UK part of it is incredible. So what he has to go through out there, and deal with the whole world is incredible. And
so I suppose the burning question would be, would you be a bridgerweight?
Well, I probably would be, but something I spoke to Tom on as well. I think Tom would be a bridgerweight. Really? So I mean, how do you see it? So a lot of the cruiserweights fought at heavy. So you had the guy
like Herbie.
Yeah, Herbie would have been. Yeah, I mean, but it's great that you can then use that against the heavyweights as well. So, it's.
Just tell me a little bit about the Youths at Risk thing. Obviously, you said there was the link to James. Obviously, there's a lot about knife crime in the news, and obviously where the WBC is in Mexico is probably worse stuff than knife crime.
Yeah, I mean, and to be honest with you, in London, it's getting that way as well. So we're going to have to just be on top of it. But we work with Youths at Risk. The knife crime is obviously, and before lockdown, it was escalating into enormous
epidemic, really.
Yeah, and these young kids are stabbing each other and getting caught with blades left, right, and centre. So we go into gyms and we work with kids in the gym. So before Christmas, before lockdown, we were working around 750 marks. So we're just building that back again with the police, all the pros, the youth offending teams. So and that's something we're pushing across the country.
Because you would have been one of those scallies.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
60 odd years ago.
Yeah. 75, I think.
Brilliant. I mentioned obviously this house, and we talked about it briefly at the start. I forgot. Was this the one that was in Restoration Man on the BBC?
No. That's it. I've got a gate lodge down in Suffolk.
Okay.
It's an 18th century thing. So which is.
I did have a question from one of my subscribers as well, who said, "How did you get Mike Tyson to come to Shoreham?"
So yeah, well, I was a bodyguard for Mike for the first time he come over in was it 205 or 206? I think he just retired.
Oh, well, after the Julius and Savary's fight. So.
No, after the Kevin McBride fight.
Okay.
Just as he retired, he came over.
Yeah, because there was a small window of time where he was allowed back in the country before they blocked him, wasn't there?
Yeah, and Joe Egan, who was a Mike Tyson sparring partner, again, good friends, great friends, dear friends, and rang me up and said, "Scott, how do you fancy being a bodyguard for Mike Tyson?" So it was like, "All right, okay, yeah, that sounds."
So how did you get into Shoreham though?
So
I'm sure he didn't have any gigs.
Yeah,
there,
so no, well we did. I did a
you
show.
did a dinner down
Yeah,
there.
no, but I didn't do it. Not that time. The time he come to Shoreham, he was up in London. He said, "Look, I want to come down to Brighton and see you." Blah blah blah. And I said, he was up north. And I said, "Listen, if you get a 24-hour window, let me know, and I'll welcome you down anyway." And he rang me up, said, "Scott, I'm in the car, I'm coming down." So yeah, he come down and we had a dinner and fantastic night. Yeah.
So what's the plan moving forward, and what's the work with the WBC? How much does that entail, and how much time do you have to spend up against that? And just one other one: are you training your son?
I am training my son, yeah. So I've got another trainer as well, who's ex-Royal Marine. So he's a very focused and very
He's doing the
good trainer. So so we work together. So so if I'm not there, then he covers it. So I've got a good team in Brighton. I've got a good team around me. So we all work. I've got 2 Marines, actually, ex-Marines who work with me. And so we kind of keep everything organised and get it going. We've got a camp, obviously. I've still got Nick Webb, who's a good fighter. And I've got another guy, German heavyweight, who's 8-0, Amir Amatovic. So we all kind of work together. And then, and then we fit in that and then do the care stuff around that. I've got a team who also works on the care stuff. But so with the wheelchair, where we are with the wheelchair initiative is we are just about to launch that in 170 countries of the WBC in a few weeks, once we over Christmas. So we were going to do it before Christmas, but we're going to wait, get after Christmas then. So.
And how often do you think about those missed fights with Foreman and Tyson?
No, I mean, listen, it's all my career. I don't sit too much on my career. I mean, I still train every day and keep myself in shape. I like to, but I mean, listen, to share, if I would have had the fight with Tyson, to share a ring with him would have been an honour. He's just had to come back. Joe rang me up and said, "Look, Scott,
Joe Egan,
I'm going to put your name. I'm going to put your name in the mix for the return." And I said, "Listen, Joe, at the end of the day, we're the way I see us all the ex-fighters, they're all warriors. We all sit here. We don't want to die just getting old and doing nothing. You want to die, and you want to, like, you speak to Mike and that, and when they talk about the great battles and the great fights and all that kind of stuff, and you never envision yourself just getting old and dying. So, what better way to go out than being a battle? And that's that not so much the boxing, but in a fight
fighter's
like the
mindset.
old Braveheart film when he goes out, the old man goes out and then he gets shot with the arrow. You know, that kind of thing. We never want to be. We're all old warriors, aren't we? All of us.
So you've obviously you still got a bit of a split personality. Then you're sort of loving, long-serving husband to a long-suffering wife, and you've got the daughter who's the apple of your eye, and you've got your son who's fighting. But there's still a little bit of fire in you.
There's always, yeah. I mean, listen, we all, yeah. I mean, we don't think we get old. That's the problem. I'm 52. I feel 30. I don't feel 52. So I think if you've got all injuries and different stuff, then maybe you feel older. But
Could
I'm in
probably
the gym
pass you off at 50 now, I reckon.
Yeah, yeah. So no, I mean, I've been in the gym with Tom today, and I've been in the gym with Nick Webb. He's come down. So I mean, again, you know, so it's heavy work. It's good work. It's heavy work, and yeah. I mean, hopefully, I mean, Tom has always been in the gym watching. You know, he's been in with Dubois. He's been in with playing with Chisora, playing with Dylan White years ago when he was younger. You know, so he's been around. He's been to Mike Tyson. We've been to Mike's house in Vegas, and you know, he's been around all these people. So in his head, he's always wanted to do it. So he's got to have a go and just see where he goes. But you know, yeah, we understand how tough it is. It's a different world now.
Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for
Super.
having us round.
Yeah.
Finally, after all this time.
Yeah, good.
Brilliant. Thanks, Scott. I
Brilliant.
really appreciate it.
Nice one.
Thanks,
Thank
mate.
you. Cheers.